right, I'm going to get started. This talk, or whatever this is called Clash of the Survival Instincts. And if you saw the most recent one about your survival, something to the effect of survival is your biggest threat, this is a follow up to that based on a real life experience that I had yesterday. So, again, this one is called Clash of the Survival Instincts. And yesterday I had an encounter which was the clash of the survival instincts. So I've been thinking a lot about this subject, as you can tell. I've actually been thinking about it for many, many years in my life. If you didn't see the video before this, you can review it and get a sense of what I'm talking about. I started working on this article about a week ago, and it was supposed to get into the deeper levels of survival instincts and how they tend to control our lives, and how often, because we've survived so far, we think that whatever we're doing must be right. And a lot of times we actually create conditions so that we can deploy our survival instincts, because it's the only way that we know how to live in the world. It's the only way that we know how to keep going. It's also part of what some psychologists or therapists might call repetition compulsion. And so, a person, let's say that a person learned in their family that abuse was love, and they've learned how to survive that. And they said, well, hey, you know what? I've survived it. So they will then seek out relationships that abuse them so that they can continue to practice the behavior that's kept them alive so far. Hi, LBW. And so that is the idea behind your survival instincts actually kicking in, controlling your life, and helping you manufacture conditions for you to continue to function at that level. And what I'm trying to offer is to be mindful that you might do that, or some other folks you might do, might do that, breaking free from that paradigm and only using your survival instincts when you need to use them. It's not wrong to use your survival instincts, but if you use them all the time for situations where they're not called for, it's going to create some problems. And so the other day, I actually had a situation at the grocery store, which seems to be a place that I like having situations, where I was leaving the grocery store, and there was a man standing right in the middle in the self checkout area, where it was hard to tell whether I should go to the left of him or the right of him. And so, because there wasn't that much space. So I said, "Oh, excuse me, sir. I'm trying to get by." He didn't move. I said, "Sir, excuse me." He looked at me and then he looked away. And I said, "I'm trying to get by. I'm not sure which way to go across you." He didn't say anything. So then I started moving past him because he was ignoring me. And then he had a look on his face like I went into his space. And then I said, "Well, sir, I said excuse me, and was just trying to get by." He didn't say anything. And so my fight or flight instincts, my fight instincts kicked in, which I said in the previous video that fight is the number one survival instinct that I have. And then it then typically has problems with other survival instincts. And so yeah, it's right. The exhaustion is real because we are in fight or flight every damn day. 1000% LBW. And what I'm trying to do is to offer opportunities for us to expand beyond that. So, continuing with the story, this guy, I said, "Sir, do we have a situation here? Because I don't know. I don't understand what's happening." I said, "Excuse me. Obviously, you have a problem with me passing in your space. And I just want to know, is there a situation that we need to resolve or something like that?" And then he just looked at me like goofily and kind of just like turned away like I wasn't talking to him. So I said, "All right." And then the woman who works there, another woman who works there at the grocery store, was watching the whole thing. And she had a look on her face like, and then I said, "Do you see what's happening right now, right?" And she said, "I just want to stay out of it," which was her survival instinct, which is we have the main ones that we know about, which are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which I got into in the last video. But there's a whole scope of other ones that started out as an article. I'm probably going to still put the article out, but I think this sucker is expanded into a book after having that experience with this guy. So she kind of buckles down, freezes, and says, I'm just trying to stay out of it." So I said, "Okay, fine." So I leave. My energy is heightened. And this dude is like a 6 foot something white dude with a long beard. Doesn't look like he's used to hanging out with people like me. So, part of my brain is saying to myself, "Pedro, why do you have this this energy when you're a 5'4" little black dude?" But I got it honestly from my 6'2", 275 pound dad and my 5 foot mom, who was just rough. At any rate, that energy's moving through me. I say, okay, bro, just chill out. Whatever's going on, don't judge this dude. Try to not use your fight survival instincts to interpret other people's ways of surviving. Maybe that guy, his way of surviving is zoning out. I don't know what's going on with the dude. So I'm just going to let it go. So I went and I had a couple of things to do. And he went outside and was like, he worked at the grocery store. So he was like picking up some trash or something like that. And I was getting in the car, putting my stuff out. And he was just looking interesting. And I was like, I could feel myself feeling like aggressive energy towards the dude. Not like I wanted to physically fight him, but I wanted to understand, like, why did this dude ignore me after I said, excuse me, several times? Then he made the face that he made, and then just proceeded to ignore me. So then I went up to him and I said, sir, I don't want to assume the worst about you. I want to assume that maybe you're having a bad day, maybe something's going on, or whatever case. Maybe you didn't even hear me after saying excuse me several times and looking at me. Maybe you just for some reason still didn't hear me. But I just want to understand because I don't want to hang out in this feeling that I'm feeling right now without giving you the benefit of the doubt. Because I've been working on myself for a long time, and I didn't want to go into this zone needlessly. I'm trying to get this dude the benefit of the doubt. And I was also ready to fight him if he hit me. So just to tell you, that's what I was the energy I was in. I don't want to be in that energy, but I wanted to know. And he said, I didn't hear you. And I was like, you didn't hear me, even though I said excuse me several times and you looked directly at me. And then and he said, I was just thinking about picking up this thing that I had to pick up the trash with. And I was just thinking about that. And I just didn't hear what you were saying. And so that's what I did. I'm sorry. I just didn't hear you. He didn't even say, I'm sorry. He was just like, I didn't hear you. I saw you, but I didn't hear you. And what can I say? Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he was lying. Who the heck knows? What I know is I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to take him at his word. I said, okay, I'm going to take you at your word that you didn't hear me. And I'm going to actually apologize to you because if you didn't hear me, then everything that I'm feeling right now is moot. There's no point to it. I'm just telling you that I did say, excuse me to you several times. You did look at me. You did turn away from me, but you're saying you didn't hear me. I'm going to accept that you didn't hear me. I'm going to hope that you have a great day. And I'll just leave it at that. And I walked off and I felt my feelings. I breathed, I meditated, I processed them, and I let them go. And I can say that several times in my life, I've had these kinds of encounters with dudes of similar persuasions as this dude, not trying to be funny. And every single time, no matter how big the dude is or whatever the case may be, they always back off when it's just me. And I'm not saying I'm powerful. I'm not saying any of this stuff, but I am saying that sometimes I don't know why people get into their survival instincts and they say or do things. And then when they get confronted with the things they say or do and they don't have physical support, they tend to back down. And that's been my experience, I think 100% of the time. And I also know and am trying to honor the things that I've been studying through the Enneagram and through a lot of self study and trying to build compassion and all these other things for other humans. That if everybody's stuck in survival instincts, they're not thinking about my ass. They're basically so in their zone that they don't feel safe and they make up whatever things they have to make up. And me making up something else isn't going to make it better. And that's the thing that I want to invite folks into. One of the things I learned from studying Ernest Becker's work on the denial of death is that many people, when stuck in their survival instincts, they do truly believe that they have come up with the cure for their mortality. Because the proof positive, as I said in the previous video, is that they are still alive. And so whatever they've been doing has been keeping them alive so far. So many people will keep doing the same thing, whether it serves them or doesn't serve them, whether it serves the world or doesn't serve the world, to the day they die. And the whole time they will be denying it until they're gone. And as I also have shared plenty of times, I have grown up in a condition, even though I'm freaking 50, can you believe it? I never even thought I was going to make it past 18. So I gave up on mortality. I did never deny death, and every single day assumed that it was my last day. And I still do that to this day. And so because I do, I don't operate from the paradigm of oh, will this keep me alive? Will this keep me alive? Will this keep me alive? Because I can do everything that I want to do to try to keep myself alive, and I'm still going to freaking die. But that's not a beautiful, soft, loving message that a lot of people like to hear. And so I've been trying over decades to cultivate a way of speaking into people's lives, helping them to understand the reality that they are going to pass and they're going to have to let go of this mortal coil, as they say. Um, as a pastor I used to know says, all of us must go the way of all flesh, meaning we're all going to physically perish from this world. But when we don't accept the fact that we're going to perish from this world, then we're constantly looking for threats to our life. And then when people have different types of survival instincts, we will see those people as threats. And that's something I've learned a long time ago. Because, like, a lot of times in the past, when I had a problem in a situation, I'd raise my hand. Like, if I was in a meeting, I used to work with my ex-wife, and they were talking. We had a big corporate meeting, and they were like, "Does anybody have any concerns with blah blah blah?" And I threw my hand up because I had some freaking concerns. And she kept pulling my hand down. I was like, "Man, leave me alone." And she was like, "Why you got to raise your hand? Why you got to call attention to us?" And I was like, because we were some of the few black people that worked there. And in her brain, she was like, "Don't call attention to us." My brain was like, "Yo, I got something to say," you know? And I realize now that with her and with other people in life, my instinct, which is to say something when I see something, made them trigger their instincts, which was if it was a freeze, they froze. If it was flee, they wanted to flee. If it was fawn and trying to be like Yasamasa, then that kicked in. It's like I've been in many situations where people actually apologized for my existence and apologize for the way I say things sometimes. I had that in a meeting like about 3 weeks ago. I said something and people were like, well, and they try to apologize for it. And now I don't judge them. There was a time, I'm not going to lie, that when it came to justice, if it wasn't fight, I just judged you, period. I just thought it was the thing to do. I wasn't trying to be an a-hole, but I definitely 100% judge people. Now I don't judge people, which then brings the energy back on me. But I also have to assume, and I'm going to tell you right now, like, I'm not a person that go around looking for a fight because that's just not my style. But if a fight comes to me, I usually don't know how to back down. But I've learned over time that there is a time to back down. And I was actually in a situation a few years ago where my instincts were like, fight, fight, fight. And I didn't because I loved so many other people that weren't down for the fight that I did what I had to do in subtle ways. Because I also learned that sometimes I might be ready for a fight and other people aren't ready for a fight. And if they're not, they had to pay the consequences of my mouth. And so I struggled for years trying not to make other people pay the consequences for my mouth. And probably my brothers, rest in peace, my younger, damn, boy, I shouldn't have brought that one up. Anyway, whew, it, they probably a lot of times were like, this dude's mouth is going to get all of our ass kicked. And a couple times I got them in those situations after asked for their forgiveness. At any rate, but I'm learning as I mature and as I grow and as I witness and I learn, I write and I study that my survival instinct is not for everyone. And I've been channeling, not like channeling, like, woo, like not that kind of channeling, but channeling the energy in a different way, which sometimes freaking hurts because I know what my instincts want to do, but I choose not to do them because I understand that my instinct can be triggering for a lot of other people's instincts. And if I pull that out, um, it's just not going to work for people. And if you know anything about the Enneagram, I mentioned in the previous video, I'm a type 8 on the Enneagram, which is called the challenger or protector, sometimes boss, but I ain't trying to be bossy, but I am a challenger and a protector, and that kicks in. And I'm really, really working on being mindful of when that kicks in and when it's appropriate for situations and when it isn't. And hopefully, with the tool of the Enneagram and another program that I developed myself called Ideals, I hope to be able to help people who have different types of survival instincts to be able to bear witness to those instincts, determine when is best to use them and when to shelve them, and how to partner with other people who might have instincts, that trusted people who might have instincts that you don't have, who can see the world in a different way, and not always in a method of survival in the conventional sense, but to create things that last and endure beyond our lifetime. Because I think with so many of us in fight or flight or freeze or fawn, or many of the other ones that I've developed over the years that I'm going to talk about in the article that hopefully will be released in the next couple of days, and probably a book later, that hopefully helping people understand when these things are getting triggered inside themselves and incorporating that with the Enneagram, I might be able to help people map out choices, ways that they want to show up in the world. So if a person is constantly freezing, but they want to fight when they need to fight, that they can build out a structure that will enable them to be able to do that, or at least, like I said, strategically partner with people who will do it. And if a person who's always trying to fight says, you know what, I probably shouldn't be fighting all the time. I've caused some problems with this kind of energy. I need to know when to stop, because freezing isn't always the wrong thing to do. I mean, sometimes there's a time to freeze. Sometimes there's a time to flee. Sometimes there's a time to fawn. As much as I hate fawning, there might be a time for that. And I'm trying to also understand that, because there's been situations where I knew that a person wanted me to fawn in order for me to survive or for them to survive. And then I would mess it up and say what I actually thought. And then other people and myself would have to pay the consequences. So I'm realizing now at 50 that that's not always the way. And when we live in a society where we're incredibly anxious, incredibly filled with fear, confusion, people lying all day long, which is also a survival instinct, and denial is also a survival instinct. We don't get into them, but they are those things, and I'll get into those in the other things that I'm writing. But when people get triggered into their survival instincts, there's a lot of clashing. And I think that that's what we're seeing a lot of. It's a lot of people in a lot of different ways trying to figure out how to survive, encountering people with other survival instincts that they don't jibe with, and then they want to destroy each other. And the example that I gave with the guy in the grocery store, I didn't want to destroy him, but I definitely wanted to understand. And my older self, or my younger self, I should say, I wouldn't say I wanted to destroy them, but I definitely would not want to be around somebody like that person. So that's a lot. Thanks, LBW, for sticking around. And I hope that if you find yourself in this situation right now where we're stuck in these survival modes every day, that you figure out by some way, whether it's through the things that I'm trying to put out, reaching out and something like that, you find ways to rest. You find ways to turn off that trigger that may happen for you. How, Michelle? Find ways to turn off that trigger, because many of us are stuck in survival mode, and it is harming us internally, and it's also harming the world, unfortunately. But like I said before, there are times where the survival instincts need to kick in, and you have to do what you have to do, but you also need to know how to turn them off, because if we don't know how to turn them off, we're going to keep seeing one battle after the other. And that is not a world that we want for ourselves. It's not a world that we want for our children. And it's not a very strategic way of creating a future. So in the next piece, hopefully I'll finish this article soon. And then what I want to share with us later is how we move from this age, which is the nuclear age, into what another fellow Substacker, Richard Flyer, talks about, which is the symbiotic age. And if you have not heard of Richard Flyer, I encourage you to go to his Substack, which I think is called Birthing the Symbiotic Age, and check out what he has to say, because he presents different ways of creating communities of cooperation. And it's I wish I had his book with me right now. It's 700 and some pages. But it's really great and really worth it. And I actually gave a talk today where I talked about his writings and how to move from this state of consciousness where we're in a survival mindset into a more symbiotic age, a more cooperative age. So, and I did do that in 20 minutes instead of 20 years. So I will probably post that video on my Substack maybe tomorrow or something like that. But in the meantime, I encourage you to take several deep breaths. And actually, we can take a few right now. And allow yourself to just be, because there's going to be somebody out there that's pursuing you, but while they're not pursuing you, you should be pursuing peace, or at least that's the invitation. So I love you. I appreciate you. I hope the best for you. I hope that you find people in your community who are open to infinite possibilities and new ways of being together. Thanks. Looking forward to a more humanist future. We need to care for each other. That's LBW, and I can't agree more. It's true. And at some point, I'm going to talk about hedonism and in a positive way, and how some spiritual movements are hedonic in the sense that they are helping us to live more fully into our human existence, because a lot of times religions and spirituality seem to separate religion and spirituality from being a human, which is ignorant. We should embrace our humanity, embrace our bodies, embrace our beings, and understand who we are on the deepest level, instead of polarizing ourselves as if we have separate parts, like as if we can be body, mind, and soul separate, but just to just be able to be fully integrated beings. And you said happy for the people who are hungry today gives me hope. I have to check that out and see what you mean, because I don't know that news. But if it's good news, I'm happy for them too. So thank you for being here. Thank you for those who will see it in the future. And look forward to growing with y'all. Peace.